Really delighted. We're very delighted to be able to share this presentation today as part of the Global Gobeshona Conference. The program looks brilliant, so I hope you've been able to join other sessions. So today, this session will be led by Sakina Bawani, who is here with us in the audience. She's Senior Research Fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute and the weADAPT Director. And myself, I'm the weADAPT Platform and Content Manager. So what will this session be about? What will this session be about? Well, we know that some of the key barriers to accelerate adaptation are financial, economic, and political. But what we'll be hearing about today is a different, although related type of barrier, one that is about the knowledge barriers or barriers to access to knowledge, specifically in terms of who accesses knowledge, where, when, and how. And this is critical because knowledge is very much at the heart of adaptation. Knowledge is often communicated in top-down manners, but in order to accelerate action, we very much need to ensure that everyone, especially those who are most affected by climate change, are able to access and use climate information. So a brief agenda of what we'll be going through today. We'll be going through the Climate Adaptation Knowledge Challenge. We'll talk to you about weADAPT and the 3 things you can do on weADAPT: learn, share, and connect. And we'll then talk about some of the weADAPT services that we offer, and then finally what you can do and what next. So I'll talk about the Climate Adaptation Knowledge Challenge. And there's 2 things to say here. On the one hand, we know that there's an information overload. There's too much information, and there's too much information, and at the same time, the information is just not organized, and that can result in redundancy, replication, and fragmentation of knowledge. On the other hand, there are large inequalities in who accesses knowledge, how, when, and where. And as I've mentioned at the very start, often knowledge is disseminated in top-down manners, assuming that because it's out there, people will be able to access and use knowledge. Unfortunately, it often doesn't work in this case. Oftentimes, the knowledge that is shared is not relevant to particular audiences. Sometimes it's too technical, it's very hard to understand, or perhaps it's difficult to access because of lack of internet access or internet unreliability, or because the knowledge is not in a local language or not accessible by the right people. And to some extent, having knowledge available online, for example, through platform, really alleviates some of those barriers, but just being online doesn't address all of those issues. And in fact, sometimes it replicates some of those access issues. So weADAPT's vision is very much to accelerate learning, collaboration, and climate action in a just and equitable way. And today we'll run you through what weADAPT is, what you can do on the platform, and how it's trying to accelerate action on adaptation. So this is a very brief preview of what weADAPT looks like. And weADAPT was created by the Stockholm Environment Institute in 2007. And it's today one of the world's leading collaborative platform for knowledge exchange on climate adaptation issues. It's a space where anyone involved in climate adaptation, researchers, planners, NGOs, businesses, decision makers, and individuals can learn and share practical and up-to-date information on climate adaptation. And they can also connect with one another to facilitate collaboration and cross-learning. And something really important to say about weADAPT is that it is a user-led platform. And it's user-led in the sense that users can contribute to the platform, they can add knowledge, they can connect with one another. But it's also user-led in the sense that the platform is very much responsive to user needs and user suggestions. And the big demonstration of that is that just in January, a couple of months ago, we launched an upgraded platform, and that upgrade was very much driven by user need. The platform, as I said, was launched in 2007 originally, and there's been a lot of changes since then in terms of how users access information and what are users' requirements and needs. And so we're very excited to have launched this platform because we think it's now much more modern and much more responsive to today's user needs. So a little bit more about weADAPT. Well, first of all, it's open to all. We welcome all of your contributions. As I said, it's user-led and it's free to use. This is part of our mission to accelerate action. We want the knowledge there to be accessible by all, but also free to use. And at the heart of our ethos is about amplifying the voices of marginalized communities and those in the global South. So indeed, we aim to be inclusive of all voices. And we've previously done surveys to try to better identify who is accessing the website, the platform, and who is adding knowledge. So we use our analytics and we've done surveys, and we'll be doing more going forward. And that really helps us to understand how we can better support those marginalized communities and communities in the global South, those who are the most impacted by climate change, and those who often suffer from the biggest inequalities in terms of how knowledge is accessed and used. The platform supports learning and knowledge exchange to accelerate climate action. So here there's a very much a focus on co-learning. As I said at the beginning, it's not top-down. It's learning across users. We want users to be able to share what's worked in their community, what's worked in their area, lessons learned, key messages. So it's not coming from one body or key bodies. It's very much learning from user to user. The platform supports collaboration and making peer-to-peer connection. And as we'll get to in a minute, this aspect of connection has been highlighted in our previous survey as a key preference for our users. The platform seeks to increase discoverability of content and searchability of content. And there's a lot of work that goes through in the background that may not be obvious when you access the platform to understand how knowledge can be discoverable and easily accessible. So for example, we use tags, and that very much facilitates that process. And finally, the platform makes connections between topics to support learning and to reduce silos, redundancies, replication, and knowledge fragmentation. A note to say that we have these two functionalities on the website, eco-conscious design and reading in different languages. And that's very much part of our mission to, on the one hand, reduce our own carbon footprint, but also to support access in a range of different settings. So the eco-conscious design makes available some green settings that as users you can turn off or on, and those reduce the energy use of the users on the platform. But it also means that accessibility for those who have low or unreliable internet access can be improved. And the second functionality that I wanted to mention is that we are using a Google plugin, which means that you can access all of the content on the platform in your language of choice. And there's about 100 languages to choose from. And I did also want to say that we welcome contributions in different languages. So as a user, if you speak a certain language, you are welcome to upload it. English is not the default, although it is for most people the default language. We do welcome different languages, uploads in different languages. weADAPT has been created in 2007, and ever since the community has been growing and continues to grow. So today we have over 7,000 users, very much spread all over the world, and those users represent over 5,000 organizations, most of which work on climate adaptation, but some of those, don't necessarily have climate adaptation as their core mission, but they are interested in this space. Annually, we have about 165,000 visits from over 220 countries and territories. As you can see on the right, this is a spread of our of our visitors geographically. And in 2001, we had those visitors came from more than 5,000 cities in more than 220 countries and territories, showing a high density of visits from East Africa and the Asian subcontinent, areas where we indeed continue to have very strong pulses. The platform hosts to this date over 2,500 articles and 1,000 case studies, and that is growing almost by the day. And so this allows you to keep track of up-to-date information on climate adaptation, but you also have a repository of some older articles, which can still very much be useful. We are very active on social media. If you've seen us online, we have nearly 8,000 followers on Twitter, 4.5 followers on LinkedIn, and 4.2 thousand followers on Facebook, and we have over 8,000 subscribers to our newsletter, which is sent every couple of weeks. And on that last point, Sukaina will get back to that last point when I pass the floor over to her. We also offer services such as microsites, and to this date, we're managing about 5 microsites. So what I want to do now is take you through the 3 elements of weADAPT, of what users can do: learn, share, and connect. So in terms of learning, anyone on weADAPT they don't even need to be registered, they don't even need to be users, can access different types of content. So we have articles, case studies, blogs, events, courses, and forums. Articles are any type of publication, whether they are reports, policy briefs, project reviews, guidance, etc. But they're different from case studies in the sense that they cannot be geolocalized on a map. They could be a summary from a global report, for example, or a cross-country report, etc. The case studies are more specific to a certain country or sub-country unit, like a city or a sub-country region. We also cross-post blogs, and we share upcoming events and summaries from past events. Another very popular type of content on our website are courses and trainings, and we reshare quite a lot of those. And of course, our users can use the forums, and I'll get back to that very shortly. The content on weADAPT is organized around over 20 themes, and you can see them listed on the right. And those themes very much help users find information related to their own personal interests. So, for example, if you're very much interested in a theme that is of relevance to the conference, for example, is community-based adaptation. And each theme is managed by an editor. And for example, the community-based adaptation theme is hosted by IIED. That's our editor is from IIED. And the editors they review the content, as I'll get to in a minute, but they also look out for new content and they moderate the communities of practice. Each theme has a dedicated forum area. So yeah, quality assurance, as I said, there is a review process to ensure that the content is of sufficient quality and that the content is clear and relevant to the platform. So this is our global map of case studies. And as you can see, we have some quite strong pulses in East Africa and South Asia, as I mentioned. But we're always looking to grow our number of case studies, and especially in areas where we don't currently have many case studies. So whether you are from an area that already has a lot of case studies or not, we would very much welcome your contribution, and that's a really great way of increasing the visibility of your work. Oh, and I wanted to say as well on the themes have very much evolved in an organic fashion. So whenever there's either we see that there's a gap and there's a sort of an area or thematic area that doesn't already have a theme, or it could be that an organization is very keen to moderate a community of practice. And for example, we're very much we're about to launch a new water theme, and we're interested in creating new ones on youth. So these are the examples of different types of content that you can read on weADAPT. On the top left, what's next for adaptation was an article that we curated with 12 leading voices on adaptation, sharing what they think are the priorities for adaptation post COP28. So it's not a summary of a publication, but it's more of it's an article sharing quotes and voices from different leading adaptation people. In the bottom left, you can see an example of an article, and I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the Underfinanced, Underprepared UNEP Adaptation Gap Report from 2003. This is to say that we do try to keep up to date with some of the key global publications. We do try to add them on weADAPT, make sure that they're there. But if you see on the top right, this is a very local case study from Ecuador. So we very much try to balance the global content published by global actors and major global actors with content that is very localized, grassroots. We have some new content that's just been published and more coming up on, for example, the role of the arts in supporting climate adaptation. So we very much try to host a range of content from a range of different actors and a range of themes. And the last one in the bottom right is to show that we host courses. And as I say, it's a very popular type of content on the platform. This is an example, visualization of an article. It's a little bit hard to see because it's on a slide, but I wanted to highlight some of the key features of an article. So if you see on the top right, this is a bookmark button. So if you are a user on the platform, you can bookmark any content, which means that once you go in your profile, you can then access some of the content you have bookmarked, and you can read it later, and it's quite useful if you don't have time, if you spot something that's really interesting, but you want to come back to it later. We do profile the users of the publication a lot. So as you can see, this report's author is Katie Harris, and if she is registered on the platform, she will appear in the top right of the article. So that's a really good way of getting more visibility for your work. Users will be able to click on your profile and find out who you are, find out what organization you work for, and they will be able to directly eventually we're planning on adding a direct messaging functionality to facilitate even more this peer-to-peer connection. As I mentioned briefly, we have a tag section, and that's a really important part of what weADAPT does in terms of organizing knowledge. So when you click on a tab, so for example, in this one, some of the tabs are Africa, transnational climate impact, adaptation without borders. If you click on a tab, you will be able to access all of the content that is already tagged with that keyword. So that's great if you're looking for a particular type of content. You also get a unique URL for each tag. So if you want to share all the content related to, for instance, transnational climate impacts, then you can share that link with someone. Under the featured resource, this is where users can add the publication that they want to share. And under there, you can see the number of times it's been downloaded. So in this case, this resource has been downloaded 212 times. So that's quite useful if you want to keep track of analytics, see how many times your piece has been downloaded and read. As I mentioned previously as well, each piece of content is organized under a theme, and you can click on the theme and access it. And we also feature the contributing organizations. And again, that's a really great way of getting more visibility for your organization. So the second element I wanted to talk about is share. Any registered user on weADAPT can share content on the platform. And as I said before, it's completely free to register on weADAPT, and there's no hidden cost anywhere. The content, once it's been added on weADAPT, is reviewed by the knowledge manager. So that is myself. And once I have approved that first step, I would send it to an editor for review. There's one editor, or there's up to 3 editors per theme, and the editors are expert in that theme. So they will be able to provide feedback on just the relevance of the piece for that theme, for the platform, and just how clear it is and how well structured it is. And finally, once the editor has approved it, the content is then published on the platform, and we always reshare it on our social media platform, as well as our newsletter. And finally, the third element is the connect. So as I've mentioned, a core aspect of weADAPT is facilitating connections across user. We don't want weADAPT to be a top-down platform. We very much want users to be able to follow each other's work, to learn from one another. So this is our community page where you can see our users. And this is an example from a user who from Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. And you can follow them. This is another neat aspect on the upgraded platform. You can follow users whose content you're particularly interested in. And if you click on latest, you'll see their latest publications. And of course, this is, you can access profile from our community page, but most people would discover people by finding them on their articles, on their article page or case study page. So it's really useful to add your profile, to add a description of your profile and an image, because this will help the searchability of your profile on the platform. We also have forum discussions where users can post comments and questions and announcements, are reshared in our newsletters. So for example, if you're looking for certain information to writing a paper, or if you're launching a survey as part of your research, then you can post it on the forums, and then we will reshare it in our newsletter. And soon, as I mentioned, there will be a messaging functionality, which means that you'll be able to directly contact users on the platform. And I will now pass on the floor to Sukaina for the rest of the presentation. Sukaina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alice. So one of the things we thought would be very interesting to share as well during this presentation is whether we are actually having the impact and some of the sort of whether we're meeting the objectives that Alice has just described in terms of our mission and our vision. And so we thought it might be quite interesting to share some of the results we've had from an evaluation, monitoring and evaluation phase we've been also conducting for the platform over the past couple of years. And we have developed a sort of monitoring, evaluation and learning framework for the platform, which we'll be publishing a paper on soon. But in advance of that, I just wanted to share some of the insights that we have had from this process. So to better understand whether there is really a demand or an unmet need within the community that we are not sort of tapping into, we carried out a survey in 2021, and since then we've done a lot of in-depth interviews with our users. This is a visualization which basically shows some of the results of these interviews, where there are some direct and indirect outcomes that users have reported from using the platform. And interestingly, also how users are, or to what extent they're able to learn about adaptation successes and challenges from others. There's quite a lot of insights on this map, so I encourage you to go and have a look at it yourselves. But there are sort of four main ones that I want to share here, which relate to the things that Alice has already mentioned as our sort of core mission. So the first of these is around raising awareness and promoting adaptation practice. And we've heard a lot from users about the platform generally increasing awareness and supporting particularly youth and young adults to learn about climate change in a variety of sectors and contexts. And related to this, that weADAPT also helps people stay up to date with the latest research and development, as well as helping them learn from each other. And this speaks to a lot of what Alice was saying about our basic mission. Interestingly, when we started out, we had a lot of ambition about supporting climate action and supporting learning, but raising awareness as a sort of baseline level of impact wasn't really on our radar. It wasn't in our theory of change either. And so this is something that's been very useful to understand. A second area of impact is around developing capacity and supporting training. And this is something that is very much part of our core mission. But also, I think probably as you've seen from the description of how our knowledge management process works, we are very conscious as a team in terms of making content as accessible and digestible as possible, providing it in a synthesized and easy to digest format. And this does seem to sort of filter through to the simplicity and ease of use that's reported from users, that content is shared in an accessible and easy to understand language, and it's based on real life cases. And so this is something that we will continue to sort of build on. And as a result of that, many members have reported using weADAPT in training with local communities, with farmer groups, with students, with internally displaced women and young girls in a range of settings, from high schools, summer camps, youth engagement, workshops, through to train the trainer workshops. So this was also something that was somewhat of a surprise to us in terms of we did learning and capacity building is obviously a big part of our mission, but the many different ways in which this is happening were not really clear to us. And so it's very valuable now, both in terms of the upgrade and in terms of how our sort of knowledge management process progresses, that we can really tap into these sources of use and make sure that we are further meeting some of these needs. Another key area, again, speaking to the Learn, Share, Connect mission, is around fostering new connections and supporting knowledge exchange. Before I get to that, the third one is around planning and implementation. So here, a key characteristic mentioned by many members relates to the wide geographic spread of weADAPT's content, and the fact that this really does allow a huge degree of exchanging lessons learned. Many projects and initiatives have been inspired by activities taking place elsewhere, even where they do obviously have to be tailored and modified to suit the local context. We have a really nice story of a high school teacher in Tanzania, for example, who's shared projects from our newsletter on afforestation and reforestation and organic farming, and developed new projects in his village and shared those with his students. and it really helped to encourage others to get involved through seeing what was working in other places, and also being inspired by things in other parts of the world where similar risks are being faced, and just having that inspiration for how that might be applied in your own context. And so this has been really encouraging to see and hear about as well. And then the last key area is around fostering new connections and knowledge exchange, creating partnerships. So here, both directly and indirectly, we have reports of weADAPT being used to create these networks. And this happens at the simplest level in terms of writing new proposals or creating new collaborations, but also from a connectivity perspective, even though there are constraints around internet access, obviously in hard to reach areas where we are trying to really focus a lot of our energy, respondents have really overcome those in some ways and reported many instances of newsletters being downloaded and printed and shared with local communities and in local libraries, and shared with students through printed materials if internet connectivity is an issue. And so this is, again, something that was a little surprising, because I think for those of us who've been around the platform space for many, many years, the challenge in the early days was always how hard to reach and marginalized communities could be supported through these kind of online spaces because of connectivity issues. And this really is quite an eye-opener to see that that's not so much of an issue as we thought it would be. Next slide, please. And then to move on to our core services. So as Alice mentioned, we do have these different types of spaces on weADAPT where we try and support knowledge sharing. And our themes are our core spaces for thematic sort of topics that are organically emerging in the adaptation sector. But we also have these network spaces where you can take advantage of a collaborative space to build a new community of research or policy or practice, and to expand reach in those areas. And the reason why this is quite advantageous is because weADAPT is sort of an integrated ecosystem. So the content that we have online in terms of members, the community, the content, as well as the sort of all the elements we have, basically the organizations and new content types that emerge all the time, are accessible by all our networks and all of our microsites. And so this really provides an advantage for a new project or a new initiative that's trying to start, which often faces the challenge of having very little content to start with. So if you would like to start a network on weADAPT, and this also applies to microsites, it can be really helpful because there is already, say, content on forests, for example, that we would have that would be relevant to your network on forests, even if you were not up and running yet. And so microsites follow a very similar principle, but there are often cases still where online spaces need to be branded and need to be featured for a particular organization or a project. And although we do encourage reusing and building on what already exists in the weADAPT platform, because we want to support this integration of knowledge and reduce these knowledge silos and the fragmentation that Alice mentioned earlier, there are situations where still branded websites are needed. And for this reason, we created the microsite service, which allows the same sort of thing to take place in terms of a network, but it is a fully branded website, basically. And again, this allows content to be shared from weADAPT to the microsite to enable it to look like it's very active quite early on. And it also gives access to the community of practice, which is really valuable, I think. The benefit of these two elements is also the legacy that weADAPT provides. So we are trying to really ensure that content stays online beyond the project funding, beyond short project life cycles. I think we've all experienced the sort of broken links that happen and the sort of loss of content after project funding ends. This is really something that's part of our mission to avoid. And the responsiveness that Alice referred to earlier, that we are really a user-led platform that is constantly responding to feedback that we receive almost on a daily basis, means that all of these things are constantly evolving as well. And we are adapting the site and the platforms and the microsites and so on to needs of partners as they emerge. Next slide, please, Alice. So this is an example of both a network and a microsite. So the CBA network is one of our oldest networks. It was developed to support the CBA conference many years ago. And this is an example where it can be a really strong space to help create that peer-to-peer learning amongst members, but it is also a space to share updates and content. And there is sort of a sister theme related to this CBA network on CBA case studies. And so there we share a lot of content around CBA as well. And here you can see on the sort of the tabs on this the page here, this is part of our new upgrade. And so there are really better, we think, more integrated ways to see content now on the new site compared to the old site. So yeah, again, a lot of feedback has been taken on board in terms of how to continue to support what we've been trying to achieve with the platform, but also make things easier for the user. On the right is an example of a microsite, which is the fully branded website I mentioned earlier. So although this looks very different to weADAPT and doesn't have any weADAPT branding, it is a microsite built on top of weADAPT. So this is supporting the initiative on Adaptation Without Borders, which is about transnational climate risk. And this is a site that develops a lot of its own content, but it can also mirror that content on weADAPT to increase visibility, and it can also pull content from weADAPT if it's relevant. So yeah, this is just an example to show that it can look very different. This also is very much about news and events. And so there's a lot of research and evidence on this initiative, but there are a lot of webinars as well. And so sometimes, yeah, platforms may have different needs. And so this is also useful for that reason. Next slide, Alice, please. And just to recap, some of the functionalities that are available on these microsites are the same as on weADAPT. So as I said, because you're building on top of the platform, all of these functionalities are readily available for microsites and networks, in fact. So the map of case studies is already something that can be incorporated immediately on a platform like that. The content types we have, articles, events, themes, and networks are obviously also readily available. And then the community spaces in terms of conversations and posting, all of that is also accessible. Our new functionalities around member peer-to-peer learning, so following, liking, sharing, and messaging, which will be coming online very shortly, will also be available in microsites. And obviously our links to the language plugins and green settings. So all of this basic stuff is quite advanced for a standard website, but it becomes a standard offering for microsites. Next slide, please, Alice. And then just quickly on our priorities moving forward, as we mentioned, we are shortly going to be producing this messaging service, which allows you to directly contact users on the platform if they allow that, if they give permission to be contacted. There are many different content types that are going to be visualized on the mapping interface as well very shortly. So at the moment, we see case studies on the map. So there was some, you probably saw some of those less filled spaces that when Alice showed the map earlier on case studies. But we also, that's partly because we don't show all our content on the map at the moment. We only show case studies, but we also have thousands of articles, some of which will not be sort of geographically referenced. So it's not obvious that they should go on the map. But again, solutions, adaptation solutions are something that we'll be visualizing. And the organizational networks that we have in weADAPT will also be visualized, as well as the membership network. I think we haven't mentioned it so much explicitly in this presentation, but a lot of our work around the weADAPT mission is about decolonizing knowledge. And so going forward, this is a big part of our sort of efforts. We are doing a lot to diversify our editorial team and the contributions we have from around the world. And so this is also a very big aspect of the monitoring and evaluation phase that we have just completed. And so what we've learned from that is also going to be part of our mission to really bring the decolonization of the knowledge that we're sharing online into practice. So hopefully you'll be seeing more of that. And then, as Alice said, we also have lots of themes and networks coming online too very soon. One shortly around water, and possibly one on just transitions and just and equitable adaptation, as well as one around youth and adaptation. There are a couple of new microsites coming on stream as well soon, so that will also bring more diversity of content. And lastly, just to summarize some of those key points, obviously weADAPT is a free and user-led platform. We are really very much all about increasing the visibility and discoverability of your work with our reach. So hopefully that has become more, it's become more clear how we do that. We are very much about learning and helping you learn from your peers and connect with your peers who are doing similar things and helping to inspire your work from what the challenges that are being overcome by others. As I mentioned, legacy is a big part of our approach as well, giving legacy to programs and projects. And we obviously have these other offerings around networks and microsites. But I think one of the key messages that we just wanted to share today with all of you is that we are really a flexible platform. We are quite adaptable to what the needs of our users are and our partners. And so please do get in touch with us if you see a possible need for using the platform that we don't currently cater to. We are very open to have those conversations and see how we can support you. I think that's all that we wanted to share for now, but we're very open to answer any questions.
There is a question from Farin Rahman, Sakina, and maybe you'll be able to answer it. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll read the question. Well, the person asks, is it possible for weADAPT to influence policies in the areas where they work? Is this a scaling up opportunity that you will consider in the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, when a lot of platforms came online about 15 or 20 years ago, like ours, one of the big things that all of the platforms said they wanted to do was influence policy, but we never really knew what that meant or what that looked like, I don't think. I feel like some of the feedback that we've had from our interviews that we've done recently has really spoken to some types of policy impact that we weren't really aware of. So we feel like a lot of the resources that we are sharing are potentially being used in those channels. I think we don't know enough still about how that is happening, but I do think a lot of that is about sharing content in a digestible way, making sure it's translatable, that it can be applied in other spaces and contexts, and that it is written in a language that is accessible. One of the things that we haven't mentioned that we do try and do is share our content in a very systematic way. So we have a sort of template that we encourage users to use when they're sharing their stories and their projects, because that makes it easier for others to tailor that to their own needs. And I think when it comes to policy impact, it's very much the same. We do have evidence that people find those kind of standards, that semi-standardization, which is still flexible, so it can be adapted if it doesn't work for your project, but it makes that content more applicable and translatable to other contexts. And so, yeah, and I think that's the best answer I can give at the moment.
Great. And we have Mohan Kumar Mondal from working in an NGO called LEDARS in Bangladesh. And he says that we are working in at the community level to increase the capacity of community on climate change adaptation, can our organization or any people within our organization join the platform? And the answer is absolutely yes, definitely. We would love to welcome you on the platform. And maybe, Sakina, what we could do now is, as we have a little bit of time, is go on the platform and show the attendees how they can sign up, and then briefly how they can add content. But feel free to share any other question or introduce yourself in the chat in the meantime.
That's a great idea. Yes, Alice.
Yes, I'm happy. I can actually share weADAPT's. So it's info@weadapt.org. Is that correct?
Yes.
The email. And I'll also share the contact form. So this is, you can contact us via this email address or here. And what I'll do now is share. Can you all see my screen? Hopefully you can.
Yes, Alice.
Brilliant. So welcome to weADAPT. This is what the platform looks like. You have seen a brief preview from my presentation. And then, so I'm connected as myself. So I'll just sign out so you can see what it looks like if you are not signed in. So sign out. Oops. Yes, so I am not signed in at the moment. If you are interested in creating an account, you can click on sign in and then create an account and fill in your details, and you will receive a confirmation by email. And after that, you can sign into your profile. So if I sign in again, once you're on your profile, for some reason that is not working. There seemed to be an issue which we'll address, but if you click on your profile, you should be able to see an edit button, and we recommend that you update your profile with a description. So for example, if we click on this article, you can see the user details. If you click on them, you can see their about profile. And so we recommend that you fill that in, that you add a profile photo, and that you fill in some of the other detail. As I said, this helps with the visibility and searchability of your profile. And so if you're on the platform and you hover over the share menu in the tab, you can then add different types of content, an article, a case study, a blog, an event, a course. And if you click on how to contribute, you have a little bit more information about how to add content. So for example, if I click on add an article, it takes you to a page in the backend of the site, which allows you to directly add in text relevant to your article, to your publication. And there you can fill in the title. There's a kind of an example structure that we would usually use with an introduction. We like to have a section on methodology, but these can be adopted as needed. For example, you don't have to have a section on barriers or enablers. This is just a template. You can just amend them. So for example, it could be adaptation at the local scale, for example, and then you can fill in the section. And usually what we encourage people to do is not to rewrite new text, but it's to just copy paste section of the publication they want to add. If you go on the right hand tab, then you can add keywords. You can add an image for your report, for your article, a short excerpt. Here you can add who's contributing to the article if there's multiple people. If they are already users on weADAPT, you should be able to find them. If there's a lot of users and they're not already on weADAPT, then we recommend asking them to register so that they can appear as part of the article. Then you can select the theme of the article, etc., etc. So I think, Sakena, is there anything else you think I should?
Do you want to just show the map, Alice, the case study map?
Yes,
And just,
yes, good idea. Yeah. So this is our map of case studies. Do you want to talk it through, Sakena?
Go for it. Go for it. It's fine.
Okay. So as you can see, we have lots of case studies, and the first thing you can do is zoom in. So for example, we have lots in East Africa. You can click, when there's a number, it means that there's, if you click, then it'll show you those case studies. So it's quite nice. A lot of them are, you can see they're very, specific to a local community. Another thing you can do is, for example, if you are interested, let me zoom out. If you are interested in cases that relate with water security, then you can type that in, and then it'll show you all of the case studies that are relevant to water security. Or let's see if you have, for example, extreme rainfall. We'll see all of those case studies that relate with extreme rainfall. So this is quite neat. You can search case studies by keyword, or you can search by theme. So for example, if we click on climate adaptation in mountains, you can see the case studies there. Or climate services, you can see the case studies that relate to that theme. So that is quite neat if you're looking for information. And what you can do also is once you have the case studies you want to show on this map, so if you filter them by theme or by keyword, you then get a unique URL that you can send to someone. So for example, if you want to show, have a look at those climate services case studies, then you can directly share that URL. I'm just going to check if there are any further questions. No, I think that's that. So in response to your question, Mohan, yes, absolutely. You can reach out to us, or you can sign up on the platform directly. And if you have any issues, we'd be very, very, very happy to answer them. And one more thing to say is that all of the content that is added on weADAPT has to be open access. So we won't make it available if it's behind a paywall, or if it's a non-open access publication, for example.
And then maybe just one more thing to say is that we also offer training on the using of the platform. So Alice showed the back end. It's very easy to use compared to the site that we had previously, which was developed in Drupal. We are now developed in WordPress. And so the site is extremely easy to interact with. It's basically like writing a Word document. But nevertheless, obviously, there are many different aspects to the platform. So if you would like training, or you would like training for your partners or for your networks, please do get in touch with us. We offer this very, very often, and it's really not a problem at all. So again, if training is something that you would like, please do email us, and we will try and set something up for you.
And yes, we'd love to hear from you, especially if you're from a local NGO, grassroots organization doing local work. This is very much what we'd love to amplify. Are there any other questions or comments, or maybe you'd want to share a little bit about your own work? One more thing to say is that we have a frequently asked questions page, and there's a lot of information there you can find in terms of, how to create an account, or what quality assurance is there on weADAPT? How do I add content on weADAPT? This is one you might be particularly interested in. So on this page, it kind of takes you through the different steps to follow to upload some content and what we're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite useful if you have any questions, but of course, do get in touch if you have specific questions. All right. Just perhaps show. So this is our community page. As I said, we welcome, we advertise upcoming events. So for example, you can see the Gobeshona, it's past event now. It shows as past because the first day has started, but we had a page for the Gobeshona Conference. And we have those upcoming events. You may be aware there's the CBA 18 conference taking place in Tanzania in May. If you know of any other events, please do let us know. If you want to advertise your own events, please add them here. We always reshare them on social media. So that's a great way of getting more visibility. We also have blogs here and more. So I think we'll probably leave it there unless there are any other questions. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's great to introduce you to weADAPT, and thank you to Fatine and the whole Gobeshona Conference team for welcoming us today. It's been a pleasure being able to share weADAPT's work. And we'd love to see you online. We'd love to help increase the visibility of your work and see how we can support it.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.